We're going to start our discussion of angles with a few things about angles. First of all four of these things on here are angles. And all an angle really is two rays put together. And if you can't remember what a ray looks like, a ray is just something that stops on one end and continues on the other end. So these are all two rays put together. Now there's a special spot on an angle that you need to know what it's called. That spot is where the rays come together. That is a vocab word that you should know. The vocab word for that, or for where the rays come together, is vertex. Okay? So on this angle, the vertex would be right there. On this angle, the vertex would be here. On this angle, the vertex would be here. And on this angle, the vertex would be here. All a vertex is where the two rays actually come together. The next thing we'll talk about is how to name an angle. The first thing you need to know about that is what symbol you're going to use when you're naming an angle. It's just like we had back in the past when we had these two up and down lines mean parallel. This means perpendicular. Angle has its own symbol. Okay, and the angle symbol is pretty self-explanatory. It's just that. If you ever see that, it means angle something. Okay, so we're going to name these angles, and interestingly enough, we can do it three different ways for each angle. Okay, first of all, you can name an angle just by the vertex alone. Okay, so if we take this angle, the vertex is B, so we can just call this angle B, and then somebody would know what we were talking about. Okay, over here, we could just name it by the vertex. The vertex is R, so if we said point to angle R, the person is going to know it's this one right here. Okay. Now there are other ways to name these. You can start at the first letter and just list them in order, but the vertex has to be in the middle. So this could be angle FBC. If you said angle FBC, they would know you're talking about this. But when you list, the vertex has to be in the middle. Now we could also go backwards. We could say CBF. Okay, so I could write CBF, but notice that the vertex is always in the middle. For this one right here, we could do angle TRX. Vertex in the middle. We could do angle XRT. Again, vertex in the middle. So there are always three ways to name an angle. By the vertex alone, putting them in order with the vertex in the middle, putting them in order backwards with the vertex in the middle. Those are all ways to name an angle. Last thing we'll hit before we do a few practices with identifying these is what types of angles are there? And the one that most people are probably familiar with is a right angle. A right angle is a 90-degree angle. It makes kind of a square corner. It makes kind of an L shape. Every angle that we're going to look at after the right angle, we're always going to base it off of this one. This is a right angle at 90 degrees. Makes your L shape square corner. Okay. Next, we're going to go over to acute. Anything that's an acute angle is going to be closed up. Okay. We had this 90-degree angle, which is basically the standard, or that's the regular. Anything that looks like this is an acute angle. And what I mean by closed is a right angle, the line would go straight up. Okay. An acute angle, it's kind of scrunched together. How I remember that is acute has a C in it, acute. So I see C as in closed. It's a closed angle. It's a small angle, meaning it's smaller than 90 degrees, less than 90 degrees. That's an acute angle. Now, kind of the opposite of that will be up in the corner here. We've got our obtuse angle. Obtuse angles are, and I underline the O here, because they are what I would call open angles. Okay? The reason I say that is if a 90-degree angle goes straight up and straight over, these are wide open, obtuse. And if it's bigger than a right angle, or it's more wide open than a right angle, that is more than 90 degrees. So it's going to be from 90 degrees to 180 degrees. 90 degrees to 180 degrees. Where the acute was from 0 degrees to 90 degrees. The last one would be a straight angle, and that would just be an angle that just goes straight across, or a straight line. A straight line is not going to be considered an obtuse angle. It's kind of got its own label, which is straight angle, which is 180 degrees. So right angle, we've got that perfect square there, square corner at 90 degrees. Acute is closed up, less than 90 degrees. Obtuse is wide open, between 90 and 180, and then straight's got its own angle, 180 degrees. At some point, we'll also talk about reflex angles, but that won't be until later, probably 7th or 8th grade.